Hi everybody, welcome back to class. Today is Friday, September the 5th. September the 4th. Looked at the calendar wrong. And it's Labor Day weekend. I hope everyone has a good time celebrating the holiday. Of course, you don't have to do any work in the course on Labor Day if you choose not to, but your assignments for week 3 will still be due on Sunday, September the 13th. So let's take a look at this particular week and see what we have to do. And of course, right now we're focusing on writing project 1 and taking your draft and making it as good an essay as possible. So I'm going to jump into the session 3 folder and see what's there. And this particular session is all about critical rereading, peer response, and getting a review of your draft from me. And all of these are designed to make your draft as good as possible. So our learning activities today, Chapter 24, Citing Sources Using MLA. That's the only chapter you need to read. Do not read Chapter 25 because we don't use APA in this course. There's a PowerPoint on critical rereading. We're going to also review the core reading that you wrote about for writing project 1. Another PowerPoint on principles of peer response. How do you review someone else's work? And 2 supplemental resources, a video on peer response demonstration and an MLA practice activity. Of course, because these are supplemental, if you feel like you're good in this area, you don't have to do them, but they're generally a good idea. There are 3 assignments and assessments, Session 3 and Session 4 discussion, which is just your first post, writing project 1 peer response, and an MLA exercise. If you're not familiar with MLA, probably a good idea to do the practice activity. Whoops, that won't work. Because it'll give you a good tune-up for MLA before you take the quiz, and although the quiz is not terribly difficult. So here are the learning activities. 10 core concepts, of course that's your text, and as I mentioned, you're only reading chapter 24. You could read 25 if you want, but it's not going to help. And here's the PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through the PowerPoint. Instead, I'm going to look at the transcript just to point out a few things to you. If you're not familiar with critical rereading, what's the purpose of it, and what are you trying to do? And this is a critical rereading of the article that you wrote about. As it says, take lots of notes. This is why we give you the advice to print out your readings. Underline the key points to make sure that you haven't missed any. Ask questions about the author. Who are they? What do you know about them, if anything? What are their credentials? What's the stake in the subject? Tell us all you can about the author. And then ask questions about the writing. What is the genre? Is this professional writing? Is it student writing? Etc. And I could go on through this entire thing. I won't at this time because I know you're going to print this out and read it later. But have this on hand as you're engaged in your critical rereading. I won't open this up, but of course, here is the core reading folder where you will reread the article you read previously, or you could simply reread the printout that you made. Let's take a look at principles of peer response when you are responding to someone else's writing, which is what you're also going to be doing in this class session. And again, I'm going to look at the transcript rather than the PowerPoint itself. Good idea to look at both. Peer response can be a little bit intimidating for some, but it shouldn't be if you understand what the principle of peer response is. When you're reading what someone else has written, it's not your job to be their proofreader, although if you see an egregious mistake, of course you can point that out to them. But rather, what you're trying to do is give them feedback about what works in what they've written and what still needs improvement. You're not, of course, a professional writer, And you're not expected to be when you're rereading what someone else has written. You're simply trying to give them perspective on, is their essay effective? And also, as this document states, by reading somebody else's work, it also helps you with your own writing. It is important that you know that it's very difficult to give someone else feedback without being critical of their writing. Of course, everyone in this course is going to be polite, and we're not going to use any negative language. But you'll want to say, I think this section needs work. I don't think this point is clear. Could you elaborate? Use that type of language. You'll want to reread through this entire thing and, of course, take notes on it. And as this document states, be civil, be respectful, be cordial. But I'll also include in that, don't be too sensitive. It's difficult for someone to give you advice about what still needs work if you're easily offended. So understand that this is being done in a spirit of helpfulness. So take a look at the PowerPoint and read through this as well. But most of all, be tactful. That document keeps popping up, and it's there for a reason, but I'll explain that in just a little bit. There's also a supplemental video on peer response and a supplemental resource on MLA activity. So let's go back one screen. We've looked at the learning activities. Look, there's tutor.com, where you can send in one of your essays and get a response on what needs work in terms of proofreading. Before I get into assignments and assessments, I do want to show one thing to you. I haven't gotten any drafts as of today for Writing Project 1, but we want to make your writing as effective as possible. And two ways that we do that is by peer response, getting the feedback from other people in the class. But as I receive your Writing Project 1, everyone is going to get response from me. I read all of your papers, I read them in detail. I will include things such as, I think this area needs work, I think this point is well done, but I will also provide you with detail about mistakes in MLA format or mistakes in grammar, punctuation, etc. And I'm going to pull up an example here. This is a paper I received over summer term, and as you can see, when you get your paper back from me, it will look like this. You'll see that I include a comment on the mistakes that I notice, or compliments, as I say here, good introduction to this particular student. I will email all of these, well, I will email yours to you, and it's important when you get that email that you don't simply hit open, you need to download the document. If you hit open, you're not going to see the comments over here on the side. But if you download it and then open it, you'll be able to see all of the advice I've given you. And just like I ask you to be tactful, I try to be tactful as well and give you suggestions. And that's because I want to see your final draft of Writing Project 1 to be as good as possible. And you will get feedback like this from me on all of the essays that you turn in. So look for that. And I try to read things as they come into me. I don't hold on to them and read them all at once. That seems to take too much time. So when I get that first Writing Project 1 in, I'm going to do a review right away, send it back to you as quickly as possible so you have time to read through all of my suggestions, digest them. You don't have to agree with me. If you've written a sentence and you really like it and I think it's awkward, but you want to keep it, that's your choice. You can certainly do that. But in every writing project that you turn in this class, you will get feedback like that from me. Let's look at assignments and assessments. Not too hateful this week. We're going to start the next discussion board, which will cover Session 3 and Session 4. If you click on this link, it will take you to the discussion board. I'm not going to do that right now. And you're going to look at the core reading you wrote about for Writing Project 1 and answer 4 of these questions. What do you know about the author? What do you know about the genre or the purpose? What do you know about the intended audience? What is the main point? I think everyone should address this one. In 2 to 3 sentences, using your own words, summarize what was the point of the reading. What evidence does the author use? This is also a good one. What's the most interesting thing in the core reading? In 2 to 3 sentences, tell us what really stood out for you. What is most confusing? And what kind of language or style does the author use in the core reading? Is it casual? Is it funny? Is it very scholarly? Tell us. Because not everyone in this class has read everything in the core readings. In fact, I haven't myself. So give us a good summary. Again, you only need to answer 4 of these. You're going to do that in about 200 words, and you're going to post that to discussion board 3. In class session 4, you'll get 2 responses on your summary. Here are the instructions for peer response. Let's go ahead and open that and take a look. Writing Project 1 Peer Response Board. This is the review, the peer review of the draft of Writing Project 1. Read as many drafts as you want, but you only have to pick 2. And try to pick 2 if you see that someone hasn't gotten feedback. That way everyone gets another set of eyes looking at what they've written. And in your review, in your peer response, you're going to respond to 4 of the following peer response questions. You don't have to think of your own questions, just address these. Analyze the summary. Analyze the response. Analyze the medium and form of the draft. Analyze the writing style. Is it awkward? Is it effective? Is it clear? And this one, if you could make one change to the draft, what would it be? You're going to click reply to what someone else has listed as their first version of Writing Project 1 and then respond. And you need to do 2 of these at about 200 words per response. So it's a few paragraphs. Here is the exercise for MLA style. I'm not going to open that up. When you feel like you've read the textbook, you're good with MLA, you take the supplemental activity. If you think you need to, go ahead and jump into this. And that might be it for assignments and assessments. It appears it is. So we've talked about the learning activities. Here they are. Again, only chapter 24. View the PowerPoint or the transcript on critical rereading. Review your core reading. Either read it again in the resources folder or read your printout again. You can take a look at the principles of peer response to make sure that your response is as effective as possible. 2 supplemental resources, and then only 3 assignments for this session. Critical rereading your initial post, Writing Project 1 responding to someone else's draft essay, and again you'll get a review of that draft from me as well, and then the MLA exercise. Not too bad of a week, especially with the holiday thrown in. As always, I welcome feedback, questions, and responses from you. You can text me anytime at 812-498-4200. You can call me at 800-416-1747, whatever is easier for you. And you can email me anytime at mstenger and the number 1 at ivytech.edu. Thanks for listening, everybody, and watching, and I'll see you soon.